If you're looking to cruise from a port that will allow you to get the party started a few days before embarkation day, New Orleans might just be the cruise port for you. Today I'm going to cover getting to New Orleans, getting around New Orleans, where to stay in New Orleans, and what to do during your pre-cruise stay. So join me as I get you ready for a little trip down the mighty Mississippi. Hey everyone, I'm Jamie from Sharon Travel, and today we're going to cover taking a cruise out of New Orleans, Louisiana, and we'll find out if it's the right embarkation port for you and your family. Let's get right to it. The cruise port in New Orleans is located right on the Mississippi River, just off of the French Quarter in New Orleans. Now don't get that confused with the more commercial area port of New Orleans, which is also on the river, but it's upriver a little bit in kind of the more southern part of the city or New Orleans. Now don't worry, it's very clear which port to go to when you tell your driver you're going on a cruise, but if you're driving yourself, I just want you to know the difference so your navigation doesn't take you to the wrong port area. The cruise ships will dock at the Julia Street Terminal or the Arado Street Terminals just north of the Crescent City Connection bridges, right on the Riverwalk there in New Orleans. The bridges are not tall enough for cruise ships to go under, so the ships will kind of stop there and then they'll do a little U-turn when it's time to go and head back up the river. Now on a side note, you will find cruise terminals for river cruises like Baby Viking or American Cruise Line just past the bridges, as those ships are small enough to pass underneath the bridges and continue upriver. Now right out of the gate, there is something extremely unique about this cruise port, and that is that it takes about 7 to 8 hours cruising down the Mississippi River to get from the cruise port to the Gulf of Mexico. It's a very slow trip, and I might as well mention it right off the bat. One downside about cruising from New Orleans is that many onboard amenities on the cruise ship are not available until the ship makes it out to the Gulf of Mexico, and that can include all the shops as well as the casino. That's right, the casino. All you gamblers will have to bring your patience because it will be a little bit until you can hit those slots and table games. But don't worry, food, shows, bars, those are all going to be open, and it's a great time to explore around the ship and get the lay of the land, so to speak. Another issue is that depending on the time of year and the time the ship sets sail, after about an hour of sailing, the views, in my opinion, are a little bit underwhelming, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Mississippi or not, but it is far from beautiful blue water. Some call it the mighty Mississippi, but I call it the muddy Mississippi. You can also run into a lot of fog depending on the weather on the river, and that makes whatever views there are a little less appealing. As a matter of fact, the last time that we sailed from New Orleans, a majority of the trip down the river, you couldn't really see anything outside of our balcony, and the foghorn was blowing the entire time, pretty much all night long. All right, so there's a quick little port overview. Now let's get into the details. If you're driving into town, you'll find a decent amount of parking at the cruise terminals. There's the Arado Street Garage at the terminal of the same name. They have about 1,000 parking spaces. Adjacent to the Julia Street Terminal is the parking lot at the 100 Poydras Garage. They have about 500 spaces. Now, if you're cruising on Carnival Cruise Lines, you use the Arado Street Garage. And if you're on Norwegian or Royal, you're going to use the parking lot at the 100 Poydras Garage. Now, the Arado Street Garage is a little bit bigger. They have, like I said, about 1,000 spaces. So it's a first come, first served basis. The other garage at 100 Poydras is a little bit smaller. It might be worth it to look online and look into possibly making a reservation ahead of time. Usually when it comes to Carnival ships, there's only one ship in port on any given day, but there could be two ships when it comes to Norwegian and Royal being in port at the same day. So keep that in mind when you're making your parking plans. There are also some local off-site parking lots like the Fulton Place parking, or you can check a website like parkwiz.com for other off-site parking locations. Not to mention there's a number of hotels that will offer parking if you stay there, so make sure you do the research and confirm pricing ahead of time. Now, depending on whichever parking lot you go to, you could probably expect to spend about $25 a day for parking for your cruise. Now, if you're flying into town, you'll pretty much have one option, the Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport, also known as MSY. From there, it's only about 15 miles to the cruise port or about a 20 to 30 minute drive. There are a few other airport options, like if you're flying in on your own private plane, you can land at the Lakefront Airport, but they don't handle commercial flights. And Baton Rouge Airport is over an hour drive away, so I don't know that I'd really recommend that unless there was something unique about the pricing or where you were staying before your cruise or something of that nature. MSY will handle pretty much any airline you can think of: Air Canada, Alaska Airlines, Allegiant Air, American Airlines, Breeze Airways, British Airways, Delta, Frontier, JetBlue, Southwest, Spirit, Sun Country Airlines, and United. Now, as usual, we always recommend not, and I repeat, not flying in the morning of your cruise, but if you insist, you should be able to find taxis, Uber, and Lyfts pretty easily, and you can expect to pay 40 to 60 bucks depending on the time of day and the traffic. There will also be cruise line shuttle options starting at about $30 per person, but remember you have to have a flight that arrives before a certain time to be eligible for that, so contact your cruise line to get all those details. Now you can pre-arrange a car service to pick you up as well, and if you're heading to a hotel first, you can grab a hotel shuttle bus. I did a few searches and I didn't really see much as far as public transportation from the airport to the cruise ports, but if I missed something, feel free to jump into the comments and share some information for others watching the video. I also want to mention to pack your patience during disembarkation from the cruise ports. It can be a little bit of a slow and extremely crowded process. A cruise shuttle to the airport or taxi, Uber, or Lyft will be your best options getting back to wherever you came from. If you're comfortable walking a bit with your luggage, you could try to kind of walk and get away from the terminals a little bit and find a location like a building, a restaurant, something that an Uber can identify for an easier Uber pickup. Now, I mentioned not flying in the morning of the cruise. We will scream it from the rooftops, fly in the day before. With all the airline issues these days, delays, cancellations, it's just too risky to fly in the morning of your cruise, and no one needs that extra stress on cruise day. At least fly in the night before and stay at a local hotel. I know they're not cheap, but there are a lot of options to choose from in a lot of different price ranges. Better yet, fly in a few days before your cruise and enjoy what the city of New Orleans has to offer. If flying in early, all the same transportation options from the airport to your hotel will still apply, especially look at the hotel shuttles to possibly save a few bucks. When booking a hotel, make sure to look at their shuttle options to make sure that they'll be running when you arrive at the airport. Now, when it comes to staying in New Orleans, you will have tons of hotel options. You can stay close to the port, with a few hotels even being considered within walking distance to the cruise port, and you'll have your choice of name brand hotels to small boutique hotels, not to mention the hotel rooms above the bars and restaurants in the French Quarter. Those ones are great if you really want to be submerged into the true New Orleans vibe. Just remember, those rooms may not be awesome for families with kids because things can get pretty adult-oriented or R-rated at times there in the French Quarter, and the party usually goes pretty late on the streets, and a quiet night's sleep could be a challenge to come by. Now, we've sailed from New Orleans, I think, about 4 times, 3 times on Carnival and once on Norwegian Cruise Lines. Most recently, we cruised in January of 2023 on the Norwegian Breakaway when we co-hosted something called the Vlogger Extravaganza Group Cruise. Now, that was quite an adventure, and we had a great time. We stayed at the Hilton New Orleans on St. Charles Avenue. They had a great bar and restaurant attached called the Luke, and a convenience-type store a few doors down that had a great supply of beverages that we may have enjoyed in the hotel lobby with friends. The location was perfect, like a lot of locations in New Orleans, because just a block or 2 away, you're going to get into all the hubbub, all the action, and you can see all the sights and sounds of New Orleans. Now, we made a few videos of that whole experience, and I'll link one of them up here that shows you our pre-cruise fun we had the day before we set sail. Now, for those of you disappointed by the news I mentioned earlier of the delayed casino opening on embarkation day, you can get your casino fixed by grabbing a room at Caesars right in New Orleans and do some gambling while you're in town. Now, the Caesars used to be a Harrah's, so if you went there a while ago and you're thinking, isn't that a Harrah's? Well, no. After 2020, they began to rebrand the hotel in phases into a Caesars Hotel and Casino. Now, like I mentioned about the hotels, most of them are within walking distance of the French Quarter hotspots, and the choices are endless. This map might give you an idea of the amount of options you'll have when it comes to hotels. Search your favorite hotel chain or do a search by amenities, location, or price, and you'll surely find something to suit your needs. Now, I could sit there and try to recommend a couple of hotels. I mentioned that we stayed at that Hilton. We've stayed at the Hampton Inn there as well. It's really just up to you. Do you want to be right in the heart of the action? Do you want to be a little bit on the outskirts? Obviously, the farther outside of the main city area you go, the less the hotels will cost. These are all things that you need to research yourself and find the best option for you and the family. All right, so now we know a little bit more about cruising from New Orleans, where the ports are, little parking information, hotel information, but what about the things to see and do if you come into town a few days early? Now, if you ask my wife what to do, she'll probably have a simple one-word answer: beignets. Yes, beignets. Is there another food item New Orleans is more known for than beignets? I don't think so. Whether it's the world-famous Café du Monde, or the one place we hit up last time right near a hotel, the Café Beignet, which was awesome, or any one of a number of other great beignet spots, make sure you try these delicious donut-type pastries covered in powdered sugar and stuffed with everything from sweet preserves to blue crab and crawfish. You will thank us later. Now, there are tons of other great restaurants you can check out in the French Quarter area, so do a little research to find the best place for you and your crew. Whether you're looking for a great breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you can enjoy a 5-star dining experience at a number of different restaurants, or you can just get some burgers and fries to get you through the day. If you want to indulge in some adult beverages, then you will be in heaven when hanging out in New Orleans. Now, whether you're traveling with a group that's looking for something a little more risque with your nightlife, or just looking for an awesome local watering hole that serves very large beers, they'll have something for everyone. Now, one important thing to know, the French Quarter area will be the busiest part of New Orleans, especially at night. You've heard of Bourbon Street. Well, that's not just the only place to have a good time. Other areas close by will be busy too, but there is one time of year where this place takes the word crowded to the next level. I'm talking about Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is like a 6 to 8 week celebration in New Orleans that starts on January 6th and lasts until Tuesday before Ash Wednesday. Now, Mardi Gras is French for Fat Tuesday and signifies a time of, you could say, decadence before the fasting of Lent. Now, there's a lot of history to this celebration, and a quick Google search can answer all of your questions. But remember, this time of the year will be crazy busy there in New Orleans. So if that's what you're looking for, make sure you book your cruise in those first 2 months or so of the year. Otherwise, steer clear of it. Now, I mentioned you'll have to decide if this area, at this time of year especially, is right for your family vacation if there are kids involved. There are plenty of things to see and do during the days, like ride the trolley, check out a museum, take a horse and carriage ride, go to Jackson Square for some great local art displays, take a steamboat ride up the river, go shopping for some awesome souvenirs. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can find to do with the family. You can have a great time with the kids, but after dark, the streets may get a bit more adult-oriented, like I mentioned. Now, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I got to tell you that New Orleans is not our favorite port to sail from. The nighttime party scene is a bit too much for us as a family, and the area for us is a bit hectic, not to mention that sailaway I mentioned down the Mississippi, just not one of our favorites. But just because we aren't big fans doesn't mean you won't be. Do your research, and you can see for yourself if the New Orleans cruise experience is the one for you. So there you go, kind of a quick look at cruising from New Orleans. I try to cover a lot in a short amount of time. So if you have any great tips to share that I missed, please jump into the comments and start typing. Maybe you have a favorite hotel, restaurant, or activity to see or do in New Orleans. It just might help another cruiser have an even better cruising experience. Now, before I go, I just have a couple quick things for you. Remember, if you're looking for an experienced travel pro to help you book your next vacation on any cruise line from any port at any time from anywhere, contact my awesome wife, Sharon, at sharonatsea@gmail.com. Just shoot her an email and that'll get things started. Also, if you're looking for an awesome cruise excursion that's not booked with the cruise line and has a back-to-the-ship guarantee, check out Shore Excursions Group. I'll actually post an affiliate link in the section below the video. Booking through this link will do two things. It will offer you a great excursion option at a great price on your next cruise, and it helps to support us here at Sharon at Sea Travel. Hope you found this video to be helpful. Don't forget to subscribe for more cruising content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.